do seasons in Diablo 4 work?
Adam Fletcher, thank you so much for asking me. I'd love to talk about this for a bit. So let's talk about seasons. All right, so we're gonna have a helpful infographic to show you in just a second, but let me talk to you about seasons as a general rule. You know, as we're thinking about Diablo 4 and the launch product of the game, we are trying to make sure that we've got a really great experience that players are going to be able to enjoy for their first, character playthrough of the campaign and have an excellent experience. Seasonal content, our post-launch content, is going to be arriving shortly after the launch of the base game.
Mid to late July.
Mid to late July, actually. It's good. Yeah. We haven't talked about that yet, but absolutely, it is mid to late July. You've heard it from Russ Ferguson. So that's the goal. We want to make sure that you've got enough time to play through your first character and really enjoy the campaign at your own pace and kind of explore potentially different classes as you go. So when we're thinking about seasons in Diablo 4, we start off with thinking about a theme, the seasonal content of that season. So we're going to have 4 seasons a year, 1 per quarter, and each of these are going to have a really strong theme associated with them. And this theme is going to basically inform the things we want to do with all the content within the season, with things that might be appearing in the battle pass, things in the seasonal quest line, things associated with like the new gameplay mechanics we'd be adding as part of that season. Right. We really want to make sure these things feel like they're connected in one coherent experience for players when they log in and they play during the season.
Right.
Yeah.
And so as part of that season then, to carry that theme forward, you're going to want to obviously have some sort of context or narrative around the season, yes?
Yes, that's absolutely right. So that leads us to the seasonal quest line. So one of the questions I see get asked either like online or occasionally we'll see in like various chat channels is just that like how are we thinking about story as a with regards to like the live service, and how are we extending the story of Diablo 4? And there's kind of like 2 approaches to the way that we're looking at things. With regards to seasons, we're not going to be using this as an opportunity to expand upon the campaign story of Diablo 4.
Right.
You know, the campaign story of Diablo 4, featuring like Inarius and Lilith and the events of the Wanderer, those events are really going to be told over the course of our expansions, our post-launch expansions that we're not talking specifically about today. But that's really where the high-level narrative of Diablo 4 will continue to unfold. But that leaves our hand open to do really interesting things in seasons. So if a season is supposed to have like a theme with a gameplay mechanic and other things associated with it, it allows us to have like one really engaging seasonal quest line that manages to deliver on like a self-contained story that's going to guide the player through like, again, the mechanics and the themes of that season. So like these are still like really big events that are happening in the world of Sanctuary, where the player is going to be able to like step in the role of the Wanderer and like kind of go and help people and like and explore interesting mechanics.
Right. So you're not bound. The ideas around the season are not bound by the campaign. You're basically creating quest lines in the open world that can be completely different and completely it's not constrained to it has to be about the Inarius and Lilith story. It can be about anything that's sort of interesting you want to play into in the open world, right?
Absolutely. So if, for example, we had a season theme for the first season, which, again, we will not be discussing today, folks. We're going to save Season 1 to talk about it a little bit later on.
Yeah, we plan on talking about Season 1 after launch.
That's right. But let's say, for sake of argument, that the first season was, the theme was about zombies.
Which it is not.
No, this is a false premise, okay? But let's just say, for sake of argument, that it was about zombies as the theme. That means that like things that would be showing up in the battle pass might be related to some like zombie stuff. The season quest line might be about like the rising of zombies throughout Sanctuary. Like that, we try to make sure these things all feel connected. So the season quest line, it's going to introduce new characters, like great voice acting, memorable quests and experiences will guide the player through the season. And that's the way that we're looking at things.
And so then that also then, I feel like I'm doing your job actually. Am I doing your job? I apologize.
No, you're doing great.
Oh, thanks, Adam.
You're doing amazing.
Thank you for the daily affirmation. I'll give you $20 later. Sorry, I'm just curious. I think like when you think about the theme, that obviously goes beyond story construct, but also goes into the mechanics, like how you think about gameplay. Yes. Absolutely.
And that brings us to the next major thing that I want to discuss, which is fresh gameplay. This is when this is the great. Yes, so fresh gameplay. So with every new season, obviously we'll be introducing new story content, which I already described. And then we want to introduce new mechanics and gameplay for players to engage with over the course of that season. So this comes down to things like just new power for players to earn or ways to experience the growth of their character. Things are going to modify and change the way they're going to want to approach building their character every season. This goes beyond meta changes or like balance and tuning and things like that. It really comes down to like just wholesale like new features and things that are going to be available for the duration of that season for players to experience. And then at the termination of the season, when the season is over, these sorts of features are going to be retired. To be considered for, again, in the future if we like them or not. But for now, we want to make sure that we're kind of maintaining a certain level of parity across the game. We're not kind of creating layers of like cruft and distraction from the core Diablo experience, which we already feel is tuned very well. So yeah, we're really excited to talk about those a little bit more in the future, but you can expect like exciting new features and gameplay to engage with between new monsters and mechanics, things for players to craft or do, change their gear, or just change their skills. So we're really excited about that stuff in the future.
And then when you think about seasonal stuff, we talked about, you know, when you look at, say, Diablo 3 has the chapters that you go through to get Hager's gift and those sorts of things. So that there's that sense of progression through a season. And we've obviously talked about the Battle Pass and how the Battle Pass will be in our previous blog around this stuff as well. But it's good to clarify again. So when you think about not just like, okay, I have a seasonal narrative, I have a seasonal mechanic or gameplay hook now, but how do I think about progression within a season?
Sure. So, great question. So, when we're thinking about seasons, we want to make sure we are creating new opportunities for long-term progression. The first version of that we want to talk about really is the season journey, which does make a return from Diablo 3. So, inside the season journey, the player is going to have an opportunity to complete a number of different objectives that are tied to mechanics, story goals, or other things that are happening during the course of the season. I think we might actually have an image for the season journey we can maybe pull up as well that might help me explain some parts of this.
I think we hid the zombie stuff though, so there's no zombie.
There's no zombie stuff in this.
Yes. No zombies.
Yes, please note the top secret labels for this because we realize there's no image we can show that doesn't start to give away some of the things we're doing in season 1. Too bad. You're going to be able to talk more. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. But here in the season journey, players are going to be able to complete a number of these objectives, as I already called out. Objectives are separated into chapters. One of the big changes that we made as part of the season journey is we've ensured that now players don't need to actually complete every one of the objectives within a chapter in order to advance. They could choose to go back and still complete.
So if I go ahead.
Yeah, it's pretty different than if you're a player of Diablo 3 and you're going through season journey. If you remember, like going through each chapter required you to finish every single little bit of it before you could progress to another chapter. So this one obviously a little different in how you kind of approach it because you don't have to do every single thing. You can actually complete it beforehand by doing most of the objectives and kind of choosing specifically.
Yeah, like if I'm not a PvP player, I don't have to do the PvP objective to progress through the journey, right?
That's correct. If we have an objective that would send you to like the Fields of Hatred, you wouldn't have to go there to complete that one. You could do the other objectives associated with the season instead.
Got it.
So when you're going through and you're kind of completing the season journey, you're going to earn rewards for completing the objectives, and you'll also earn some big rewards at the end of each chapter, where you're going to get like packs of like crafting materials and items, and you can also unlock actual legendary aspects that go in your Codex of Power.
Oh, nice. So not just earn through dungeons, you can earn through the journey.
A different set of aspects, in fact, will be available through the Codex of Power in this way. And some of the new legendary powers we add in every season will also be made available through this method. So you'll still be able to find them as item drops, of course, but you can start being able to experiment and play with them pretty early on through these drops. And then the last thing I think is worth talking about here is every time you complete one of these objectives, you're going to also be earning favor, which is a kind of an experience system that's used by the Battle Pass. But with that other way, so you get like little drops from completing the objectives and big drops of that also from completing the chapters. But you know, when it comes to long-term progression in the Battle Pass, like, Kate, would you mind maybe walking us through some of how the Battle Pass works?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know there's been a lot of questions about the Battle Pass, so let's talk through it today. So this is the Seasons tab, and this is going to be, you know, the hub for all things seasons. Under that top secret label, you can see the season journey, and then at the bottom here, you can see the actual Battle Pass. And what you're seeing is a mix of the free tiers and the premium tiers of the Battle Pass. The way that you progress the Battle Pass is, like Joe mentioned, by earning favor. And there's two sources of it. You get it from the season journey, like Joe mentioned, but you also get it from leveling up and playing any seasonal character. So there's 3 levels of the Battle Pass. There's the free track, which, like the name implies, you don't have to pay for. Everybody has access to that. The premium track, which is roughly $10 US, depending on where you are in the world. And then there's the accelerated track, which is just like the premium track, but it has includes 20 tier skips. It's folks who might have gotten a late start and a special cosmetic, and that one is roughly $25 USD, depending on where you are in the world. But let's talk a little bit more about the free and premium tracks. So the free track has 27 total tiers, and what you're primarily getting from the free track are what's called smoldering ashes. And the smoldering ashes are going to be like the currency that you use to unlock seasonal blessings. So the seasonal blessings are different buffs you can get that will help accelerate your progress through the season. So you can see, for example, here, plus 3% to XP earned. That's going to help players, level up again, level up multiple characters, and all of these are really just meant to help players through that seasonal progression, through that seasonal journey. It's important to note, though, that there is a secondary level requirement on every free tier of the Battle Pass that contains Smoldering Ashes. So for example, if you were level 1 and you bought a bunch of tier skips and hadn't played yet, you wouldn't be able to access the Smoldering Ashes and spend them until you had actually leveled up a character and met those level requirements. And this is to prevent folks from buying a ton of tier skips and keep everybody on a level playing ground. So that is.
I had a question about that actually. So.
Yeah.
There are no Smoldering Ashes available in the premium track of the Battle Pass, right?
That is absolutely correct. It is all the things that affect gameplay are only in the free track.
Okay.
And so that basically, we've said it's always cosmetic based. So there's no, you can't pay for power in Diablo 4 because, as you saw, the stuff, the season blessings are on the free track, and they have a level requirement, so you actually have to play to get to a certain point. So it keeps everybody in a level playing field.
Right. You may not pay for power in Diablo 4. So yeah, let's talk about next the premium track. So like I mentioned, $10 USD, depending on where you are in the world, and this contains 63 total reward tiers. So you add that to the 27 from the free track, you get the 90 total tiers, in the Battle Pass. Yes. There is a ton of value in that premium track. So you get 2 full armor sets for every class. And they're really themed to the season. They're meant to be like a celebration of that season's theme. And there's other stuff in there. There's the seasonal mount. There's the seasonal mount armor, which you can see here on this screen. And then there's just a bunch of fun other little cosmetics like role-playing clothing. For example, we have a big, pair of white bloomers in there. So there's lots of fun stuff to find in the Battle Pass.
I know, that's what I wear when I role play.
I think that's actually a really fun idea, though. So it's not necessarily big armor or things, but just more other stuff. So if you want to play a particular role, there's options for some of that stuff that you'll find.
And you can mix and match all of it. So you can create all kinds of ways to express yourself.
What's nice is that you just said there's 90 tiers, and a season is 3 months. Right, so you have quite a lot of time. You have essentially 120 days to do 90 tiers, which seems doable.
We want it to be achievable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, great.
I want to call it one thing also. Then we were looking at that image before. There's that top secret label on the left.
Yeah.
That is explicitly a link that will bring you to some part of the season journey as well. The only reason it says top secret there is because it's got language in there that I do not want to make sure that anyone is able to read to give away what's happening in season 1.
Exactly.
Otherwise, people will know about the zombies.
Otherwise, people will know about. It's not a zombie season, Ron.
You use the example, Joe. That's on you. That's
I was just
me.
trying to pick something. Okay. I'll say something. The season of the circus next time. Whatever. So actually could be kind of cool, like a devilish circus sort of feel. All right, I'll talk to people
Scary
about that.
clowns.
It's scary clowns, yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's nice to get a little more information on the Battle Pass, out there.
Right, and so we talked about progression.
Yeah.
We talked about both in the season journey and in the awesome Battle Pass. And so now when we think about what the seasons also provide is obviously, we're hearing about balance. We're going to be hearing about, hey, how do we improve people's experience based on what we saw in the previous season? And actually, before we get into that, if I can interject, I'll steal one of your questions from Q&A. Can I do that?
Go right ahead.
Oh, yeah, all right.
So one of the things that comes up, I get a lot on my Twitter feed is around, hey, how do I think about, Diablo 3 seasons, Kagan said it earlier about your seasonal character. That notion of, do I have to re-roll to get into and experience the season and experience the narrative wrapper, to experience the mechanics, to experience the progression? Basically, do I have to start a new character?
So Diablo 4 is balanced around the idea of trying to make sure that level up experience from 1 to 100 is really engaging and fun and very punchy when items drop for you, that your power progression feels a certain way as you play. So you do, as a result of that, we do balance around the idea of playing over the course of a quarter character, right? And you can play a lot longer than that if you want, absolutely.
Right.
We want to make sure it feels really good to play inside that 9-day period. We are going to be having players like re-roll and make new characters with every new season, and be able to experience the growth of their character over the course of each of those quarters.
And I think you might have said it, but just because you talk really fast, I want to make sure it's really clear.
How dare you? No one has ever said that about me.
I'm
once.
a fast talker and you beat me. So the notion around, though, that you basically have to complete the campaign at least once before you can truly experience the season, right?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, there's a couple things that so once you unlock a couple things, you'll have them for your account from that point forward. I can just kind of maybe just throw all
go right
those in
ahead.
right now.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, we get so many questions about it. I think it'd be good if we clear it.
Yeah, sure. So first thing is, when you complete the campaign on any character, whether you're playing in the hardcore mode of the game or the normal mode of the game, no matter what difficulty of the game that you're playing and you beat the campaign on, from that point forward, every character that you make, you're going to have the option to skip the campaign as part of playing that character. So if you play the campaign as part of this pre-season period before Season 1 begins, and you finish it, when you start playing in Season 1, you can choose to skip the campaign as part of your playthrough, which means you get to experience the new seasonal content right away. Otherwise, you can still choose to play through the campaign in seasons, but you'll need to finish the campaign content before the seasonal content's going to begin for you. So just things to think about as you play. So that's the first thing you get as kind of an account level unlock for your character as you play.
Right.
The second is when you're playing through the campaign, you're going to reach a point in the story where you're going to unlock your first horsey. And when you get your first horsey,
horsies.
Horsies. And once you unlock your first horsey, you're then going to have the ability to basically mount up with every one of your characters from that point forward, including characters you might have already rolled at that point. Having unlocked it once, you've got that as an account level achievement effectively for yourself. You'll be able to start
future seasons even. I can just start a new character, gotta get my horsey.
Level 1, after skipping the campaign or even playing through the campaign in the following season, you're gonna be able to just go ahead and mount up right away.
My horsey's in my cave with me?
Yeah, your horsey, yes. The horsey that died is then going to immediately revive and then you'll play with the horsey right away.
Zombies.
Oh my God.
Spoiler!
We have showed the video. People know. Okay. Honestly though, if I spoiled that moment, then I do deeply apologize, and we should put spoiler warnings on these things.
I think they're taking like zombie horses now is theme specific. I think that leans right into that seasonal theme.
Yeah.
Pivoting.
Yeah, absolutely.
3 weeks before lunch.
Yeah, sure. Sound off in the comments if you want zombie season. Let's hear it. Okay, so that's the second thing. You'll have access to your mount that you unlock. And then the last thing is that there's, as you're playing through as you probably played as part of like the open betas that we've done, and you'll see again in SummerSlam, you'll be finding these altars of Lilith throughout the world.
Server Slam.
What did I say?
Server Slam.
Okay.
Server Slam.
Completely a slip, everybody. It has nothing to do with SummerSlam. So during the Server Slam, wow, I really did, didn't I? So during the Server Slam, you're going to be finding altars of Lilith throughout the world. And when you collect these, you get two things. One, you're beginning renown, which is going to be basically used to get a number of different, rewards for your characters on that realm from that zone. So new skill points, new healing potion charges, things like that you got a chance to see before. Right. But you also get a permanent stat boost, for all characters on your account.
One of the main reasons to go after the altars.
Yeah, right. But we don't want you to need to necessarily go after them every single quarter to go and collect all of these. We think it's really fun, particularly the first time, to go and find all of these things.
Right.
So once you get that stat boost the first time, that stat boost is going to apply to all of the characters in your account from that point forward.
Right.
Yeah, so you don't have to get those over and over again. And when it comes to Renown, you don't need to go get every Altar of Lilith to finish off the Renown track in each one of these zones.
Sure, it's like the season journey. You don't have to do everything in the Renown track to get all the Renown. You can do it. Maybe I want to do, maybe Strongholds are my favorite feature, so I can lean into Strongholds or whatever. So, but what you're saying is, hey, I played the campaign, I found all these Altars of Lilith the first time, and now when we go into a season, they are hidden again, but I still keep all the buffs I got the first time, all the things that are permanent, like the +2 intelligence, +2, God knows I need +2 intelligence, and +2 strength and what have you. But the idea of going and finding an altar to add more renown to the pool to progress, I can still do that. Like
Absolutely.
I can still go find them if I want to.
Yeah, and you get a little bit of experience for doing it as well. So yeah, they're still kind of fun to stumble across as part of your regular play experience within a season. You just don't have to get them all again if you don't want to. There's other things you can do instead.
Okay, so I think we covered the what sticks around.
That's right.
So that's great.
But like the entries in your Codex of Power are going to reset, so you're going to have to go find those aspects again.
Go
like
to the dungeons.
Yeah, go do the dungeons again. So yeah, those are the things you're going to reset.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so that definitely great long-term. That was really on topic, actually, in terms of long-term progression, because it actually is long-term progression.
Yeah, by the letter of the law, it's long-term progression. So yeah, Rod's 100% correct. Thank you.
But when you think about what else the seasons provide an opportunity for, like you talked about like all these things, okay, we have a new quest line, we have new mechanics, we have all this progression, but it's also an opportunity to kind of react to player feedback and also what you're seeing in terms of the data coming in terms of balance or things that maybe we need to smooth out and sand down.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that operating a live service game with Diablo 4 after the game launches and seasons come out, that is going to be basically it's the best versions of this are always a conversation with the player base as we play and a conversation with the community as we play. So as we're going to be receiving feedback and we're seeing how certain features and content is performing, that gives us opportunities to sort of like respond to that feedback and react to it with updates to the game. Now, things take lead time, so if we see immediately after launch that there's something that we could maybe make an improvement on, it's tough to like immediately and very quickly turn around like big changes, but we want to make sure that we are carefully iterating to make Diablo 4 the best version of itself that it can be as we go.
Sure.
Yeah, and this is like it brings up to the point like where we just had betas and we literally took the feedback that we got from the community, which we, we're obviously super appreciative of because it just makes a better game in the end of the day, and people will actually be able to experience those changes from the beta in the Server Slam weekend this coming weekend because of that feedback. So players providing feedback on our forums, on Reddit, social media, we're always reading through all of that stuff. To have that, so yeah.
And I think it's worth mentioning too, in terms of the way that, like, in order to have a game that has seasons all the time, and sort of this, like having quarterly seasons, you're not like once season 1 launches, we start season 2. Like season 2 has to be pretty much like very much in flight, and that's what I think Joe was talking about around the idea that. We're going to be as responsive as we can. So if there's a bug, or especially if it's something we can fix on the server, like we'll do things quickly. Yeah. But if there's a big change, it may take a season to get there, just because season 2 is already mostly in the can by the time season 1 is.
That's how game development works, everyone.
What? Yeah. You're developing things ahead of time? Yep. Unbelievable. That's why we know we have zombies. And so, but just something in terms of patience and understanding is like the way that you have to build seasons is you're basically having 2 seasonal teams that are leapfrogging each other with like, we kind of call it the odd team and the even team to be able to keep up that pace. And so that's why I was like, oh, I saw this thing in season 1. It's definitely addressed in season 2. It may not if it's big enough. It may be that season 1 thing we saw is in season 3 because it was big enough to require that time.
Yep.
So that's absolutely right.
Just understand how that's all working.
Yeah, so like reacting to bug fixes and other things, that's going to be another really big part of the live service team's job, right? So like everything we're doing within seasons, we want to make sure that we're constantly responding to that kind of feedback from players and kind of making the game better as time goes on.
Well, the other part of the season is like, we've got a lot of positive response on our character creation. And it would be great to get Kagan back in to talk about sort of how we think about customization during the season, because we know maybe talk a little bit about what you can actually find in the world, but also what we're excited about with the shop.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the game is full of hundreds of incredible transmogs, that you'll unlock just by salvaging gear, and the transmogs in the game really give you this this sense of like visceral power progression for your character.
Right.
And so they're meant to really like bring that to life, grounded in Diablo's story and its world and its lands. And what the shop offers is a lot of diversity. So like the way that we wanted diversity of like the fantasies that you can experience and that you can express. So the way that we wanted to support the development of the seasons was to, add things to the game that players would appreciate. To create art and beautiful things that are grounded in Diablo 4's world and its art style, but provide this like array of class fantasies. And so, for example, if you want to be like a thunder goddess as a sorceress, or you want to be a big barbarian that like rips the tongues out of your enemies and puts them on your armor.
Very specific. Right? That was very specific.
I like it though. That's good.
Slightly unsettling, but very specific.
Yeah,
you can, the shop is going to help provide a lot of this like diversity in the types of fantasies, and then you can take all those pieces and mix and match them with the cool stuff that you find in the game to express yourself all kinds of ways.
Yeah, I think one fun thing about this too, like players got a chance.
The
like I saw
tongue ripping, is that the fun thing?
Absolutely,
yeah, tongue
absolutely.
ripping.
But no, I was actually going to talk about. I was going to talk about our previous betas. We got a chance to see a lot of players making really cool-looking customized characters in the game, and all of the gear they're collecting, it's still very low-level gear. Like there's much more stuff to go find.
Wait, there's
Yeah,
more
wait
beyond
till you
level
get
20?
to the end game.
There's a lot more looks and appearances to find as you're progressing through more of the game.
One of the things I love about the equipment that's in the game is that we actually do regional themed armor and such.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, this is not.
Here's our side-by-sides.
This is not my point, but it's fine. It's good to speak to your point. Maybe all I was going to say quickly before, so Kate can come back and talk about this. But I just think it's really cool that we have like regional looks, like the notion of like, oh, there's a there's like a Hauser look, and there is a Fractured Peaks look, and that kind of thing. That is kind of interesting. That when you go into a particular zone in the world and you start collecting loot, you're actually picking up pieces that are of that zone, so you can actually dress more like a person from that zone if you wanted to.
That's right, particularly of the legendary gear when you're leveling up 100%. Yes, there's a lot more to discover even after that as you get into world tiers and more.
Did you want to, Kegan, you want to talk us through some of the examples?
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the shop armors.
This is tongue ripping, right?
Yeah,
No,
you can see
no.
blood right out of the mouth, right there.
I don't know if the names are final, but this guy, I think his name is Death Raven, the shop guy. But yeah, so you can see sort of like a side by side of in-game armor for the barb versus like a shop armor.
I think I just want to one thing. I think it's so funny that we accidentally got these really awesome poses for the in-game armors, and all the shop armors are just a person standing.
Deadpan.
Like this was. I
Checking his look in the mirror.
This
Like,
wasn't
you're not gonna
completely
do it.
intentional, but it was a funny.
It was
funny
totally
thing
an
that happened.
accident. It's because two different teams made the
it's-
pictures.
It's,
But yeah.
it's just funny. It's all.
But yeah, let's look through some of the other side by sides. But again, see
She's very excited to have found
she's
the
like,
armor.
oh, I'm here. And then we have one of my favorites from the shop there. Oh yes, and this is Rogue side by side, so you can see. I think the shop Rogue here is called Deathwalker. So keep an eye out for tons of really cool, diverse
I love the
fantasies in the
tassets.
shop.
I love the tassets on the in-game armor, and I love the pauldrons on the shop armor.
Just use the word
so cool.
tacit. I didn't.
There's honestly like.
I've been in fancy games
The
for a long time.
MTX is focused on collection, right? Like it's not like we're trying to like put only the cool stuff in one channel or the other. There's awesome stuff to collect from the game and the shop.
And like you said earlier, like you can mix and match, create your own fantasy, which is really cool.
See, now we're talking my language with the necro. But like, for example, if I really like the in-game look, but I want that the shop helmet, like when I buy that armor set, I can take that helmet and apply it to my in-game if I wanted to, yes?
That's right, and you can dye everything.
Oh, in the
So,
wardrobe,
like,
I can actually recolor everything too.
Yeah, you can dye everything from the shop and in the game. I think there are 8 colors in the dye palette, so yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to check that out during Server Slam, you should make sure that you get a chance to play the wardrobe and try dyeing some gear.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's customization. And then one more thing is related to customization, not tied to appearances and looks, which I think we already have a good coverage on. But we'll be adding new like legendary powers, like I called up before, and also new unique items with every new season. Make sure there's like new builds and ways to kind of like create customized characters.
And those will stay. Those aren't seasonal.
Those will be going to the Eternal Realm as well as the Seasonal Realm, and they're going to be evergreen. They're going to be there after the season is over, which continue to add to the pool.
And so speaking of evergreen, like that's true. Like there's potential to add side quests and things like that. Like there's ways to continue to enrich the open world through seasons that will actually stay as people sort of move from the season into the Eternal Realm or to the next season. Yes.
Yep, 100%. We are going to be looking for those opportunities to kind of continue to add to the world of Diablo 4 and continue to build out Sanctuary. These are things that we're really excited about as a team.
And we never actually, I think that maybe that might have been the first time someone's mentioned the Eternal Realm, but like that is the intention, much like Diablo 3, that a seasonal character will, be in the season playing everything that we've been talking about so far, and then when that season ends, that character will then move to the Eternal Realm where it will live on, and you can choose to play there, or you can choose for the next season roll a new seasonal character and go again. Yeah,
that's absolutely right. So the characters will get merged down in the Eternal Realm at the end of the season, giving you an opportunity to take some of the stuff that they collected over that period of time, and then build a new character as part of the next season.
Yeah, there's no reason to feel like to shy away from starting a new character on the season because you will retain all of that progress.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
Okay, cool. And so what about when we think about when I play the main game outside of a season, we know we have capstone dungeons to be able to change my difficulty tier. We know that at the end there's some mysterious level 100 boss that I want to try to get max out and prove I can beat this level 100 boss at level cap. Like, are there other things within seasons that are kind of like that, or how do I think about that sort of notion about like this sort of looking to the horizon of what I want to do?
Well, once again, Rod Ferguson, I couldn't ask for a better tee up in this case. Let's discuss the idea of aspirational challenges. So with every season, we want to continue to build upon the end game and the goals that players are going to have for themselves with every season of Diablo 4. And we've got some particularly big ideas as we go through the first couple of seasons when the game launches. So with every season, but we do want to continue to add these really, really pinnacle challenges for players to go and engage with.
Pickle challenges?
Pinnacle challenges.
Pinnacle.
I think you said, I honestly heard
challenges?
We all heard pickle
zombies
challenges.
and pickles is,
Yeah. All right,
There we
okay, well,
go.
fair enough. Fair enough. All right, so
Throw
maybe
in some mayo in there.
at
It's a
SummerSlam.
sandwich.
With slaw.
this is the level of respect that Joseph Pipewar, Associate Game Director, gets on Diablo 4.
I'm looking forward to the pickle challenges, all I'm saying.
Yeah, same. Okay, so basically, we want to make sure that we've got these new big challenges for players to go and engage with every time we release a season. And as we go, we'll continue to add more depth to this. But one thing we want to be very careful about is we're not looking to just sort of like arbitrarily continue to make the game longer and longer and longer and longer to play.
Right.
That's not the goal. Again, we are balanced around hitting level 100, earning your Paragon points, getting all of your legendary unique items. That's the real focus of power progression for the player. We want to provide new and distinct opportunities for players to kind of express that power and new goals in the chase over the course of the season, without necessarily making like just more stuff that you have to go through in order to play the game. So yeah, things we're very excited about. New bosses, new major encounters, new dungeons, new things. And then as we see how players are reacting to the game as it is, we'll continue to build in that direction as well.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting when we talked about like side quests and things like that. It's also true kind of for the end game is that we may use seasons to experiment with new in-game features, and then if it's working really well, we might decide to keep it. If it's not working quite so well, we may have it leave with the season, and then maybe bring it back later. And what I like about the kind of quarterly seasonal flow we have going is that it allows us to experiment a little bit and see what works and what doesn't. And if it doesn't work, we know it's only there for 3 months. If it does work, hey, maybe we should have it stick around. So it's a great opportunity to try stuff out.
Absolutely, particularly as it relates to content too. It's like just being able to bring in like these really tough encounters and different bosses and things of that nature. And then these mechanical features, as we see how they perform and we see how players react to them, we may or may not decide to keep them on, to your point. And if they're particularly popular, we decide to keep them in.
Awesome.
We want to hear from players about what's working, what they're enjoying, and also, what kinds of fantasies they want us to make in the shop. So let us know anything that you want, gameplay or from the shop and battle
Yeah,
pass.
it's like I said earlier, this is ultimately going to be a conversation. And as we see how players are actually playing Diablo 4, that's going to help us, advise us on how we want to build Diablo 4.
Corpse exploding necro look. I'm looking for a corpse exploding necro
I
look.
think we got you covered.
Oh, okay.
You're going to have to stay tuned for future seasons.
Okay, good to know.
And I will
covered.
say, like, I know we glossed over it really quickly, but we were talking about like meta changes and things like that, and like balancing and whatnot. That is included in the feedback. That is incredibly important for hearing from players related to that.
Yeah, I don't want to skip over that either. Thank you, Adam, for calling that out. So, if Diablo 4 is a game about choice, we want to make sure that we don't allow balance issues persist so long that they start to kind of interrupt or disrupt that choice that we're trying to provide for players. We don't want like any one particular build to feel so powerful that there's not a reason to play other builds within a season. So we want to make adjustments to make sure that like player builds that might not be seeing as much play and get buffed and adjusted appropriately to make sure that they do see more use as time goes on. That is important to us. We will be making those changes on a regular basis.
Yeah, we don't want one way to play. We want every class and to have builds that all are equally as effective in terms of being successful. We don't want to be like, only Whirlwind Barbarians can succeed, so only everybody's playing.
Yeah, that's
right?
the ideal. The reality is that every season will be like something that's a little bit more powerful than something else. Sure. We just want to make sure that the distinction, the divide there is not so great that it feels like you're making the wrong choice mathematically to ever play anything beyond whatever's considered meta for that moment.
Right. Well, it's not like RPG players are min-maxers at all. They never try to do the most with the least ever.
No.
Joe,
like,
deadpan.
I'm not signing up for that. I think in the spirit of managing expectations and ripping band-aids off, I do think there's something we haven't talked about that we should at least say, knowing that we haven't talked about, which is leaderboards. I think the notion that I think people with Diablo 3 and even like D2R as an example the main thing about a D2R season is a leaderboard. And so just saying that in the early seasons, at least for season 1 and 2, there will not be a leaderboard. And that is something, again, as I said, a lot of stuff's already in flight. We understand the importance of leaderboards. We understand people wanting to be competitive in their PvE play, competitive in their build play, be able to show their mastery of certain things. And so it's definitely on our backlog that is a thing we're working towards, to provide the player community with leaderboards as we move forward through seasons, but it's not something you're going to see in season 1 and potentially not in season 2. Again, I'm just managing expectations so you're not yelling at me on Twitter after. We hear you, we know we want it, we're working on it, it's just not going to be there at launch or
That's right.
season 1 and 2.
That's right. So we're going to take the time to do them right. We'll bring them online as soon as we can.
Awesome.